Superhero movies have a big problem no one is talking about. A problem exclusive to this genre that doesn't affect other superhero projects, like comic books and animated shows. It has nothing to do with the oversaturation of content, the overexploitation of visual effects artists, or how hard it is to get attached to new characters. All these problems exist, but can be solved if studios make things right for once. What no studio can solve, no matter how hard they try, is that actors age.
What?
I know this sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, but it affects every superhero movie that comes out and becomes a serious problem for every cinematic universe. A much bigger problem than releasing a bad movie that flops in the box office. And today in Mr. Headcannon, we're going to prove it. A fundamental difference between the source material and the live-action adaptations is that comics don't depend on any flesh and blood actor. The characters are literally drawn on the pages, so they can live forever without undergoing any changes. Peter Parker starts Ultimate Spider-Man looking like this and ends up looking like this. More than 10 years of uninterrupted publishing, more than 100 issues starring the same character, and the Peter Parker from the Ultimate Universe looks exactly the same, as if not a single day had passed since his first appearance.
You look the same.
This happens with all the characters featuring in superhero comics, and is one of the keys to the genre's success. Time moves very slowly for these people, almost as if they were frozen in the year of their creation. The world around them moves forward, but Superman and Batman are always 30 years old. They are written and drawn by hundreds of artists, but all the members of the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four always stay the same age. This allows the same characters to monopolize superhero stories for decades and decades and decades.
You look the same.
There are some comics outside continuity that show us what would happen in the future, like Old Man Logan or The Dark Knight Returns, or even Spider-Man Life Story, in which we see what would happen if Spider-Man aged in real time. But the vast majority of Marvel and DC stories are starred by characters frozen in time. Without this resource, we would never have read so many Spider-Man stories within continuity, happening in the same universe, with a character that seems to never age. Without this resource, superheroes wouldn't have become a cultural hit, and they wouldn't be immortalized. But this can't be adapted in the movies. Marvel can send Hugh Jackman to the gym and put 5 pounds of makeup on him, but he will never look the same as in his first appearance, because there's been 32 years since then.
Oh, I'm so old!
And I know what you're going to say, that this isn't even a problem. It's an advantage that live action has over comics. The audience can build a special connection with an actor that can't be formed with an illustration on a page. You might really like Alex Ross's style and how he draws the members of the Justice League, but no one pleads for Alex Ross to become the artist of the next Superman comic. There are no street protests demanding that a specific artist be in charge of bringing a superhero to life in the comics, but there are people desperately asking for a specific actor to play a certain superhero in live action.
Prove it.
DC fans begged Warner for years for Henry Cavill to return as Superman in the DCU. Not because Cavill was the best actor in Hollywood, and only he could play Superman, but because a group of fans formed a relationship with the actor. To these people, Cavill is their Superman. Just like for many, Tobey Maguire is their Spider-Man. There are people who can't imagine anyone else wearing Wolverine's suit in live action. It has to be Hugh Jackman. Ryan Reynolds himself said no one could replace Hugh as Wolverine. And one of the reasons Deadpool and Wolverine is breaking box office records is because of Hugh's return. But what happens when the actor ages? Kevin Feige commented that the next actor who played Wolverine would have to be remarkably different than Hugh Jackman, so people wouldn't compare them. Otherwise, the next actor would be a cheap Hugh Jackman knockoff. The next actor has a lot of pressure on his shoulders already, and he hasn't even been cast yet.
That doesn't seem fair.
Hugh Jackman's legacy as Wolverine is so great that some fans expect X-23 to become the next Wolverine in a couple years. That happened once in the comics, but are we really considering deleting Logan from the canon when Hugh Jackman can no longer play him? At this rate, we'll have no superheroes in the MCU in a couple of years, because none of the beloved actors can be replaced. This never happened in the comics or animated series, and it never will. If this close relationship with the audience didn't exist, Marvel would have recast T'Challa without any problems. No one would have complained. It would be like when they change an artist in the middle of a regular series. To make the style change as unnoticeable as possible, the publisher looks for an artist similar to the one who had been doing the comic until then, and problem solved. Maybe you like the previous artist's style more, but you would never stop reading that comic because that's no longer the Black Panther you like. But this does happen in live action. The same people who were crying for Cavill's return now say they want nothing to do with Corin Sweat's Superman and James Gunn's plans. All because Cavill won't be part of the new DCU. Those who cried died for Iron Man's death want to see the character again at some point, but they would only accept Robert Downey Jr. in the role. We already know he won't be Iron Man again because he'll be playing Dr. Doom in Secret Wars. Even if he's an evil Tony Stark variant, it's obvious that the next Tony Stark from the 616 universe will be played by a different actor. And it gets worse. Many of those who were excited to see Hugh Jackman in Deadpool and Wolverine hope that this actor will bring the character to life forever, as if this were a comic. But Hugh won't act forever because he isn't frozen in time like the comic book character.
Don't say that.
When Deadpool and Wolverine started filming, Hugh acknowledged that the training to get back in shape had been very difficult, hinting that it would be one of the last times he would do something like that. Some people believed his muscles were covered with CGI to make him look bigger, but this beefcake is real. They even make fun of it in the movie because it's impressive that a 55-year-old man could look like this. The problem is, he won't be able to look like this forever. Something similar happened to Chris Hemsworth. After Love and Thunder, the actor commented that the routine to achieve that body had hurt him and that he wouldn't do it again. He's 40, not 55 like Hugh Jackman. This wouldn't be a problem in other types of movies, but actors who play superheroes are always incredibly fit, and the older they get, the harder it is to maintain a physique like that.
I don't like where this is going.
Not to mention actors like Patrick Stewart or Ian McKellen, who are over 80 years old and acknowledge that they have little time left to continue acting because their bodies can't handle it. They might show up again in Secret Wars, but I'm sure that will be their farewell, and we won't see them playing Magneto and Professor X again. Marvel will have to replace them with younger actors, and some people will complain, but there has to be a solution to this problem. Superhero comics do reboots every now and then to rearrange continuity and fix all the contradictions in the canon. This is an excuse that movies can use to change actors. It wouldn't be something new because we've seen 3 Spider-Men, more than 3 Supermen, and I've lost count of how many times we've been introduced to a new Batman from a new universe.
There are too many of them.
Surely Marvel will do this in Secret Wars, because that's what happens in the comics. Once Dr. Doom is defeated, the Fantastic Four rewrite the multiverse with some changes. I suspect the changes in the MCU will be introducing a new Iron Man, a new Captain America, and a new Thor, who can interact with the new X-Men and the new Fantastic Four. Marvel will take advantage of the fact that now they have the rights to all their characters, and the MCU will be what it should have been from the start. But you'd have to be very naive to think the audience will welcome these changes with open arms.
Why is that?
Have you forgotten what the reactions were when Sony announced that Andrew Garfield would be the new Spider-Man and Sony would cancel Sam Raimi's saga? People hated the idea, and the Amazing Spider-Man movies got very bad reviews because everyone compared them to Raimi's movies. Do you remember the hate Tom Holland received when he debuted as Spider-Man in Civil War? Or the insults Ben Affleck had to endure when we found out he would be the DCU's Batman? And the swearing Robert Pattinson had to put up with? Do you really think everyone will applaud Hugh Jackman's replacement as Wolverine?
Well, I don't think so, mister.
I wouldn't be surprised if some Marvel fans who have followed the MCU since Iron Man 1 step aside after Secret Wars, because to them, there's one Tony Stark and one Steve Rogers. We saw something similar after Deadpool and Wolverine. I loved the cameos in that movie, and I wasn't even expecting to see Weasley Snipes' Blade again. But after that cameo, some people started asking for him to be Blade in the MCU, instead of Mahershala Ali, who already signed a contract to be the new Blade. I don't think these cameos were a mistake, but some nostalgic folks are going to compare the new Blade to this version of Blade, and that won't be good for anyone.
That's gonna be trouble.
Even Ryan Reynolds said he wanted Wesley Snipes to have his own goodbye movie, like Logan in 2017, but I don't think Marvel would do something like that, because that would get in the way of their own Blade movie. Alright, let's just breathe. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little, because right now, everyone loves Ben Affleck's Batman, and DC fans are angry they won't see him again. Now, everyone applauds Pattinson's Batman, and some consider him the best Batman of all time. Andrew's Spider-Man, rejected at the time, is now one of the most beloved by fans of all ages, and Holland's haters disappeared after No Way Home.
They love me.
Maybe many hate the idea of seeing new actors playing Wolverine, Iron Man, Captain America, Blade, or Superman, but if the stories are good, people will accept the changes over time. I just hope it doesn't take them as long as it took them to accept Ben Affleck's Batman, who was hated for years, and people realized they liked him when he quit the role. Funnily enough, he could have continued playing Batman if it weren't for the fact that the DCU fell apart right at its peak. We talk about that in this video over here.
Bye.